Hello everyone, my name is Willem Dabekaussen, geological surveyor of the Netherlands. So I have to say, I'm standing here a bit humble. We've seen so many beautiful algorithms, deep learning networks, and for the last talk, I will present something that I made with random forest. At the same time, working for the geological survey, maybe it's our task. We don't always have to push the limits, look for the newest algorithms. But I'm from the geomodeling department. What we made is maps and models that apply for the whole country. A small country compared to Canada, but still. So what we often do, we take methods, more robust methods that work. So we actually have a product now that we have made by machine learning. So I thought this is the last talk, how to keep everybody awake. I'll start with something you should not do, but let's do a live demonstration. I think it should pop up now. So this is Dina Loket. This is our web portal where we display all our data, and this is the page where we display our models. So we can have a quick browse around. And we see maps like this one, our geological map. So maybe nice to mention the conference started out with Christine showing the European geological map. And there the Netherlands was just one color of yellow. So somebody told me, well, the Netherlands is just one swamp, isn't it? So this is the proof if you're living here, you can detect many different kinds of swamp. So a map like this, it's a manual map. Somebody draws all the polygons. The update frequency is really low. It takes years to make this. It's updated maybe for a few decades. Looking a bit further, there are models like this one. This is our REGIS, our hydrogeological model. So it should draw a cross-section right now. There it is. Many of our models rely on geostatistics. So this is one example, a layer-based model. But these are really huge projects. These takes years to run. There's lots of manual interpretations of boreholes. Kriging has lots of manual steps. So the update frequency here, maybe once a decade or so. So it will take a long time for new data to be implemented in these kind of models. Then, the subject of this talk, we suddenly have this one, the seabed sediment map. Here it is. And this is generated entirely by machine learning. I can run this on my laptop computer. It trains in a minute, maybe. Maybe not a few minutes to get a prediction for every grid cell, but we have a method now to update this model in just 5 minutes. So really useful in an area like this. Suzanne mentioned it before. It's really, the North Sea is currently really active. Lots of new data coming in. So quite a breakthrough, really, looking at the computational side, that we as a geological survey now have this completely machine learning generated map. So what you're seeing here, different colors are sediment types. I'll explain that a bit later. And we're looking at the top half a meter of the seabed composition. So it's the proof that we have actually something here. Okay. So the rest of the presentation is something like this. Will be about how we make this model, just some steps that we encountered to construct this. So maybe on the application side, why do we need a seabed sediment map? Lots of fishing, shipping going on, a lot of construction at the moment. So seabed sediment is really important for animals. The benthos is seafloor dwelling animals that live there. And so for ecological studies, it's used a lot. And it's really in high demand now for the construction side. So wind farms, when windmills are installed, for example, that generates a lot of noise. fishes really sensitive to the noise. So the way that sound waves travel through the water column, it's really influenced highly by the sediment distribution, because the sediments, the North Sea is really shallow, the sediments can reflect or really dampen the sound waves. So quite interesting applications. So when I started being involved in this mapping program, what was used mostly was the original manual map, made mostly in the 80s and 90s, result of lots of different map sheets being combined. Since then, there were some geostatistical approaches, but recently a few large-scale studies have come out that use a random forest for seafloor mapping. So the one I'm showing here, it's quite nice. It uses bathymetry and current speed, wave velocity. So these are external model outcomes that can be used in the random forest approach to make a prediction of seabed sediment composition. So for me, I've done quite a bit of geostatistics, working at the Geological Survey. So what I will show you is how could we use this random forest algorithm, but then take into account location, so x and y coordinates of the samples, because that was something that was not yet done. So I will show you how we get to that. On the data side, I think in the project this took most time. We have different sources of data, getting that data, combining the data, takes maybe half the time. So the fancy machine learning stuff is just a small part. But then we have these samples, 14,500 samples. And for each location, so these are grab samples or fiber cores. For each location, then we calculate the mud, sand, and gravel percentage. And what we're after is a map classifying these sediments with this system called the Folk 16. If you count carefully, you can see there are actually 15 classes, but that's where it is. I will show you quite some maps, so maybe you can remember this. That the greenish sediments are mud, yellowish is sand, and the brown sediments are the gravels. So huge spatial sampling bias. Most samples are coming from near the coast. Also very much imbalanced classes, because we have about 2/3 of the samples consist of sand. Here, this is really a shame. I have just this sheet. We have our samples. We have the grain size fractions. And there are two different approaches we can take. So the fractions, mud, sand, and gravel, we can model separately, getting maps of these percentages, and then combine that to classify it to classes. What I found is that it works much better if we want to predict this folk classified map. It works much better to go to the other route. First convert our samples to classes, and then do classification modeling. I don't have the sheets here to prove it works better in this case. So there are some advantages. Machine learning algorithms, if you do the classification approach, will directly output class probabilities. And these probabilities are really useful for uncertainty communication. But also we saw there's high class imbalance. So when you're predicting classes with high class imbalance, then classes that occur a lot tend to be, again, over-predicted. And we could use threshold tuning, so probability threshold tuning, to calculate the most probable class to correct for this class imbalance. So this, the orange and green part, that's the route we are going to take. So for this audience, this will be a simple sheet. We're using a random forest. Very little hyperparameter tuning that's needed here. So what I will show you is some different maps that we get when we have some variation in the features that we use. Two types of validation. First, the validation coming from cross-validation. We did a 10-fold cross-validation. And we calculated the kappa coefficient, which is like accuracy, the higher the better, but really suitable for in different classes. Until we will be looking at maps to see, do we see some geology in the maps? All right, so this area, we're going to look at this area. What we're seeing here is the bathymetric high. It's a plateau consisting of glacial till. So here we have gravelly sediments, brown, as you remember. Then we have an incision by tunnel valley system, and this incision has a muddy infill. And the muds are here green. So using our random forest, the first I'm going to show you, what if we just supply x and y coordinates? And we immediately see that a random forest is really poor spatial interpolator. Right, we see all these linear artifacts related to the fact that a random forest can just make a decision what happens if x is greater than something, y is smaller than something. So we do sort of see our tunnel valley incision, glacial plateau, but not nice interpolation. There's a really simple workaround that we applied, which is a coordinate system, just an arbitrary choice. So we used what we called oblique coordinates. When you rotate the coordinate system, you can recalculate all x and y coordinates in a different coordinate system. And by using 6 different angles, we got 6 pairs of oblique coordinates. 6 different rotation angles. Really simple method. And now suddenly, the humble random forest turns into some sort of spatial interpolator. So it's a really good interpolator, I don't know. Is it the nearest neighbor, or does it resemble some sort of creating? I don't know. But it looks much nicer. Interestingly, when you look at the kappa coefficient, we supply more information. The map looks a lot better, but kappa stays about the same. Then we're trying to take it one step further. What if we can mimic geostats a bit more? And including neighborhood information. So for every sample in the training set, or every grid cell where we want to predict, we're including distances to the 5 closest samples, and also the sediment class that's present in those samples. So there's a lot more information. The kappa coefficient rises quite a bit. So cross-validation shows this is really a better map. So this is one of my main points, really. Never trust cross-validation statistics, because the map outcome just is a lot worse, right? We see all these discontinuities related to shifting neighborhood information. So as a map, it really doesn't make that much sense. Well, it was the best kappa coefficient that we could achieve. Something different to try. We can use different features related to bathymetry itself, but also different derivatives of bathymetry, like slope, focal mean, by including slopes and focal means for different ranges. Information about the surroundings can be conveyed to the random forest. And I quite like this one. Here we can see our glacial tunnel valley, muddy infill. It's a really nice prediction. But then what happens on the plateau, it looks very artistic, but I'm not really sure of the geology. So what we settled for in the end was a combination of the oblique coordinates and bathymetry and slope, focal mean, things we derived from bathymetry. Given this map, so you see the muddy infill of the tunnel valley, the gravelly glacial plateau. This is the settings we used for the final map predictions. Compared to the manual map where we started out, the differences are obvious. We just now have a lot more data, so a lot more detail in the map as well. Yes, I'm not Thomas, but this is my little joke. So it turns out that we have all these different approaches that did touch upon quite a few of the major art movements. So what I want to say to you is keep on modeling until you arrive at geologism, right? Because that's what it's all about. don't just hunt the best cross-validation statistics, but that will not necessarily mean you have the best map. I have one small example. Do you have some time?
Just 2 minutes, including question.
We can do it really quick. What I really like at the map we have now, from a geological perspective, this is a different area, Tessel Rock it's called. Here we have in red, it's a glacial till layer. But locally this is overlain by currently actively moving sediments. So actively moving with the sea currents. Okay, really quickly here, if you look at the bathymetric map, you can see this low area, this is the glacial till, and then we have these sand waves migrating over it. On the top, the prediction of the seabed sediment map shows very nicely this gravelly area for the glacial till. Then these sand waves covering it, and if you look closely, in between the sand waves, you're at the bathymetric low again, and then you look onto the glacial till plateau again. So this really, so we can see it here and here. This is prediction that me as a geologist, if I would be drawing this map, it would be pretty close to this one. So for me, this is quite amazing that just a random forest algorithm can make a map that looks informative like this. So it's not perfect. As you can see the sand waves here. If I would draw this, then I would make this sand continue a bit further south, like here. But the whole sand wave should be sand. Uncertainty. We could prove that the uncertainty, what we get is probabilities, which is really a random forest voting proportion. We could prove that the voting proportions are in fact really indicative very well of the real model confidence. So we could use this as probabilities. And we display this with our map. Then we have quite a useful indication of the map uncertainty as well, which is used a lot. And that will be the end. So what did we learn? Get to know your machine learning algorithm. You can put different things in, different things come out. But just continue until it looks like geology. Yeah, maybe my question is, for the future, it's really nice, machine learning approaches like this, but it's really on the machine learning side. We're coming from mapping, which is just manual. Where in the future could we combine this? Right? We're seeing some points where we think, as a geologist, I would draw this differently. But what are the options that we have or will have to get these geological concepts in our map? Because we don't have that yet. That's it. Thank you.
Let's maybe squeeze one question in if there's a quick one.
It's really a quick one. Thank you, Willem. That was such a fascinating and great presentation showing what I can do for mapping, especially in regions where you can't reach and can't go mapping each time again when you think your data may be not correct. So this is fantastic. Question, how long did it take you from the sample data, the real data, maybe the drilling data, to develop the algorithm to come to this kind of final mapping? I know you have several outcomes, but let's say to come to the best.
So how long did it take me? I think this project, a couple of years, 3 years, I think, it did run. Of course, I'm working on a lot of things, but for 3 years we were working on this until we had this method the way it is. Yes.
That's such a brilliant outcome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I suggest having other questions after, but let's thank Willem for his great talk.